Here's another apologist advocating shifting the burden of proof onto atheists.
A foundational principle of the tactical approach is that when other people make a claim, especially if it's controversial, it is not our job to refute the claim, but it's rather their job first to defend it, okay? I call this reversing the burden of proof.
How do apologists expect shifting the burden of proof to convert or convince anyone? If I say that I don't believe in one or another theistic doctrine and I ask for evidence that it is true, and an apologist replies that I have to give evidence that it isn't true, does the apologist expect me or even an unconvinced third-party spectator to reply, I don't have any evidence that it's false, so I guess it's probably true? If a person is not convinced of what a theist believes, why would you expect a lack of contrary evidence to sway them? Does this work with anything else? If someone is agnostic about whether Bigfoot exists, and a Bigfoot apologist says there's no evidence that Bigfoot doesn't exist, does the agnostic ever then say, oh, well, now I guess I believe in Bigfoot? I doubt it.
The basic rule of the burden of proof, that is, who bears the responsibility to give evidence regarding a view, is that the person who makes the claim bears the burden.
This is sophistry. If someone says there's a god and another person responds there's no god, you could say that they are both making claims. Some would dispute this because the person who says there is no god is simply stating a null hypothesis, which shouldn't really count as a claim. But whether or not the atheist is making a claim, it is absurd to assert that the theist is not. I would say that the burden of proof at the very least falls on the person trying to do the convincing. Insofar as the theist is trying to convince the atheist that their views are justified, the theist carries the burden of proof.
Okay, let me say that again, it's really important. The person who makes the claim, especially if it's controversial, bears the burden to give reasons why anybody should take the claim seriously. Now the problem is, too often, when someone else makes a controversial claim, especially against Christianity or against a Christian ethical view or something like that, they've just thrown that out there, and the Christian has felt the responsibility to refute it. And whenever we do that, we give the other person a free ride.
But if you give good evidence that shows why your belief is the most reasonable inference, you might actually convince the person, or you might convince someone listening to the conversation. Simply shifting the burden of proof is far less likely to do that. Whether or not they get a free ride because they didn't present evidence of their position is a rather petty concern if your goal is to win people over to your point of view, isn't it?
That is, they just throw down the gauntlet, so to speak. The gauntlet is a glove from medieval times, and you throw down the gauntlet, the knights. This was a challenge, right? You throw down the challenge by giving an alternate point of view, and then they back off like they don't have to now defend it. They win just because they entered the fray, as it were, by offering their point of view. And we let them go at this, and we've taken the responsibility on ourselves. And if we can't resolve the issue, we can't refute the point of view, then we kind of walk away in a dejected fashion.
Which is why you should be prepared to defend your view. Simply deflecting by shifting the burden of proof is a petty, face-saving tactic. It is unlikely to convince anyone of anything. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.